our brain is just not designed to deal with all of this stuff. I mean, you alluded to the state of the world and the events that are going on at the moment, and there have been horrible, horrible events going on in the world for many, many years. But now we can
Now we get
access it.
updates
We
all
can
the
see it.
time.
We can, if we, we're talking about something that happened recently, we can see it happen live. And that's, our brains aren't designed to cope with that, because where do we put that? How do we make that into something useful? Because it's not a threat to us imminently if we're watching it on a screen, because it's not going to happen to us where we are because we're not there. But we have these emotions of response, of sadness, of anxiety, of worry, of anger, of anything. But where do we actually put that energy then once we lock our screen or go on to the next thing?
Well, what the survival system, meaning our thinking mind, wants to make meaning out of that, wants to put it in a story, wants to contextualize it, whether that's like, I want to understand why this happened, or I want to understand how I'm safe so this won't happen. But either way, we're engaging with this information, and like, aside from, is this really information? Is this propaganda? Is this just something? Who
Yeah.
knows? That's another
Same
podcast.
with watching the news. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even then, though, like, who
Well,
knows?
true. That's a whole other thing.
Whole other podcast, right? But we're so desperate to contextualize this, not even consciously, but when we keep thinking about it and what that imagery does, and how it's quite disruptive. So if we don't have a method for practicing emptying out, if we don't have the ability to withdraw our attention, not even from our phone, but from our own thoughts, from our own train of thought, and be able to make something else more important than our thinking mind and the content that we're generating, we will be dead in the water. We will wonder why we are burnt out. We will wonder why we have fatigue in our relationships, that we feel like mildly depressed all the time. It's because the prefrontal cortex is generating too much, and we're in survival. The amygdala is also pumping. So there's no ability to just be here now, because even if we're processing the content that we've absorbed during the day, in that processing, in that thinking, we're still one step removed from the present moment. There's still a dissociation from our present lives, from the relationship that's right in front of us, from the conversation we're having. So we've got to have some sense of, I hesitate to say discipline, because I know my perfectionist self and the perfectionists in the world, like, our spines get rigid. We're like, yeah, coach, what do we need to do? I'm like, no, not an abusive discipline, a compassionate discipline, where something is more important, that my quality of being has to become more important than the thoughts I am generating or the information that's being thrown at me at any given moment. And that helps with our discernment long term. But it's a courageous bet, because, boy, to the hyperproductive person, making something more important than our thoughts will feel irresponsible, feel like a threat to who we think we are.
If you think about an artist and they're going to create some beautiful work, or we're going to write a novel, and you're going to, you're writing a book now, so maybe you can give us your personal twist on this. But imagine, you think, oh, where would be the perfect place to go and do this? Somewhere quiet, somewhere probably in nature. Maybe there's water, a lovely view, lots of coffee that you can just enjoy. And it's, you're not being rushed. You're not drinking it because you're tired.
Mm-hmm.
You're drinking it because you want to enjoy it. Good food, some good company. You're not thinking like Netflix on in the background, with podcast, and then my alarm's going off. And there's a lot of these jolting things. You're thinking of these more peaceful moments that allow that creativity. And then you think of, your classic marketing office is probably strip lighting, conference style tables, maybe we're all jointing desks. You won't have your own office. It'll be loud. There'll be lots of things going on. And, to an extent that maybe it's vibrant, it's fun. Maybe there's like a, poster on the wall that suggests that we're a fun office, but it's inside. Where does that inspiration come from? Where does that creativity come from? And it's not necessarily that we all need to just say, right, that's it. I'm going to go and sit at a lovely cabin overlooking a lake, and that's the only way that I'm going to find peace. But it's actually understanding how our brains, like what we're putting ourselves through, really, through, day-to-day life. When we have our phone next to our bed, even the alarm clock, it's so unnatural. Can you imagine our ancestors having an alarm
Mhm.
clock to wake them up? They would be absolutely terrified. Firstly, they'd be awake way before us, probably, or way after us in terms of like the circadian rhythm and the light cycles and everything that our bodies kind of sync up with. But it's just mad when we actually think about it in that way of no wonder we're inside between the daylight hours in winter
Mhm.
and we're woken up by a noise and we have to sit under this artificial light and produce, and then we go home and we feel like a bit of a vegetable. But then your perfectionism can kick in and say, well, what about that
Sure.
side hustle you were going to do, or what about this, what about that?
That's right.
And it's that's not even an extreme example.
Yeah,
Like, I think that's pretty average, like, pretty average person, average life of now,
that's right.
corporate lifestyle, like, the hours are long, even if you're not corporate, even if you're just working, a 9 to 5, a
Yeah.
temp job, it's kinda what it is, and then we wonder, I don't feel so creative. I don't
It's
feel
not a
so
shock.
great."
Yeah. Alan Watts has this great quote, but it's something to the effect of like the only Zen you're going to find on top of the mountaintop is whatever Zen you bring up there with you. Meaning, like, I'm not sure the peaceful cabin is any more peaceful if this prefrontal cortex is running the show there as well.
Yeah.
And I would argue, yeah, and yes, I fully agree with everything you're saying about the pace and the and do it again tomorrow and well, what's the side hustle and then this like go 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 um experience, which is both internal and external at this point. It's really hard to reckon with. And I would argue you don't need to go to the cabin or the mountaintop in order to recover those moments of peace, even in the chaos of that office. Taking 3 minutes. I mean, if we took 3 minutes on this podcast to sit and breathe together, your listeners would hang up. I mean, no offense to your listeners either. I'm sure some of them might stick through, but someone would be like, what are they doing? What a waste of time. I'm going to go do something more productive than listen to
This
this
is not
silent
exactly
nonsense.
productive, this is not productive.
Right. Which I would ask, are you so sure? Are you so
Mhm.
sure? What part of you is telling you this is not productive? And if we were to dig into that, just to compress that conversation a little bit, it's our shame and fear that tells us it's not productive. So I would have to ask, are you so sure that your shame and fear are a credible source here? Source of information. And
Mhm.
I wonder what we rob ourselves of by insisting that it's not productive. A little curiosity here. My logic is not stronger than our shame and fear. Like I can't logic my way into getting myself to sit down. But my courage, which is of the heart, not of the logic. It's not mental a mental skill here. My courage, my willingness to bet on my quality of being more valuable than my quality of doing. That can get me to sit for 3 minutes.